Hey, well, good morning, everybody. This is David McLeod speaking to you from the San Francisco Bay Area. As you can probably see from that beautiful still photograph of me, I cannot get my camera working this morning, so we are not able to get video for me. But you just have to imagine me sitting here naked and just talking. But today we're having a really wonderful show, and I'm going to invite my co-host Tommy to introduce our special guest, JoAnn Rotermund. Welcome aboard, Tommy. Good to see you.
And nice visualizing you, David. I didn't need that right now. But thanks as always. So everyone, we've got a wonderful show today. We've got a wonderful guest on, a friend of David's and mine, a beautiful woman I met over 2 years ago, just about 2 years ago. And JoAnn Rotermund. And JoAnn is all about forgiveness. So she has a book called The Forgiveness Habit with a foreword by Desmond Tutu. It's a beautiful book. It just gets right down into the heart of a topic that David and I talk about just about every show, right? Just about every time we talk in Life Matters, the term or the phrase forgiveness comes up. So with that, JoAnn, I'm going to ask you to say hello to the audience and just tell us a little bit about maybe how you came to be the Queen of Forgiveness.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it's great to be here. I love both you guys. You're so much fun and you're so great. And yeah, great imaginings today, David. I got into forgiveness because I spent my life stuffing anger. That's what I got taught to do, and then I had a therapist who kept trying to get me to express it, and I couldn't. And then finally, at some point after I'd moved and wasn't working with her anymore, I started expressing anger, and without any help, anyone to help me with it, it got out of control. I would just scream and rage at anybody that if I didn't like the way they even looked at me. Strangers in the store or whatever, I'd scream at them. So I was really out of control and didn't realize it until my teenage daughters started refusing to go with me anywhere unless I'd promise Mom not to scream at anybody. And I even had trouble. Even after I'd promised, I had trouble. You know, I would still scream because I was just out of control. So finally, at a certain point, it occurred, forgiveness started showing up around me in all kinds of articles and books and various things, and I started studying forgiveness. And it wasn't the cure-all, the thing but I had to do a good deal of study and work and research and everything to really clear all the anger out of my life. Mm-hmm. But when I did that, oh my goodness, my life just became about such freedom, inner power, and joy. It was just amazing, just off the charts awesome. I love my life now. And I mean, people who know me now that didn't know me before can't believe I used to scream and rage like I talk about.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I wanted to ask you, JoAnn, you said that you were taught at a young age, I guess you were taught to stuff your anger. And because I'm imagining a lot of our viewers and listeners are taught exactly the same thing. Oh, How long did that go before you finally reached a point where you started releasing that anger in the first place?
Oh my goodness! Oh, I was married and had children. I actually got to a point that I so could not express myself that I got very depressed and didn't even realize what was going. I didn't realize I was depressed. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I couldn't function very well. And then I finally began to realize the problem and that's when I got help. I found a therapist and got some great help, really great help. The one thing she wasn't able to get me to do was to express my anger. It was so stuffed, I couldn't express it. And it took me several years after that. I was in my late 30s before I began expressing anger, before I began letting it out. But it wasn't letting it go, it was letting it out. and it would
Right.
still be in there. There's a difference between letting go of it, which is what you do with forgiveness, and it's gone, and just raging and expressing it, and it still
Yeah,
stays
absolutely.
there. And
And so,
so
yeah,
I
I was
was
just
at,
going to say, so how long did that process take before you, as you said, your daughters were saying to you that, we don't want to be with you. So a certain amount of time passed as you were expressing this anger in this
yes.
dysfunctional way before you realized you had to do something about it. How much more time passed there?
Gosh, it was. I was into my 50s
Wow.
at least
Yeah.
before I really started doing anything about it. I was probably in my early 50s when I started looking, really researching, mid 50s, something like that, when I started researching it and started when I started studying forgiveness intently.
Wow.
Hey,
And then
hey,
how long did
hey,
it take before the forgiveness effect started to change your life?
Well, probably about I don't know, 6 months,
Wow.
something like that, before it really, really started changing things. It still took, like I say, it made a difference fairly soon and right away. But for it for me to, I did a lot more research and a lot more study beyond just forgiveness for me to start really clearing out the anger that was stuffed for so long. For me to start releasing it, really releasing it, instead of just, so often we think of forgiveness as forgiving someone, or forgiving a situation, or forgiving something that happened. Well, I did that, and I did that, and I did that, and I did that, and it was all good. It was very good, and I still had a lot of stuffed anger and rage that was there, and I what I needed to do was clear that, and
Right.
that's what I finally learned how to do, and I learned to make forgiveness a way of life in that
Right.
process, and clear it all out and just be forgiving all the time.
Wow.
hey, David,
Yeah.
couple things. For some reason, JoAnn's picture keeps going away and then it comes back. I'm not sure if our system is doing that to her, but I'm not sure if we can hold it on her when she's talking. Before we get too far away from it, I want to go back to that first phase, right? That phase of stuffing. And I can look at it as stuffing because some kids, some people growing up are told that they can't show emotion, right? Oh, stop crying, stop being a baby, and you're told to kind of keep it in and keep it under control. And I don't fault my parents for that, and we've talked about this before too, because my parents weren't taught how to deal with emotions or how to express emotions, because
Absolutely.
their parents weren't taught, because their parents weren't taught. It's something that's been lost somewhere in human history, especially in this culture that we're in today, where the touchy-feely. I can go into a corporate meeting these days, and I joke with an HR guy once, and I said something about the F word, and I said, feelings. and it's some people have this blockhead where it's just that we're blocked from expressing emotions. We have these terms, oh, that's too touchy-feely. Well, screw that. That's who we are as human beings. And we need to realize that and appreciate that and learn how to handle emotions. Learn how to have them, learn how to let them go.
Exactly.
The way we do it these days, right, JoAnn? You know what it is. It's you stuff it in your bag, you carry it around with you, and then one day that bag explodes, and now you're what you call a raging bitch for a certain period of your life. And so we just need to understand and forgive that. Forgive that. Somewhere in human history, we lost the ability to feel properly.
I'm not sure we ever really had it. I don't know. But yes, you're right. I know that my parents loved me dearly, and they did their best with me. They did their best to teach me the best way they knew how. I don't fault my parents either. They did what they knew to do to make me a responsible, good person. So when I would come in upset about something somebody had said to me or something that had happened, they would just say, well, just don't worry about it, let it go, just put a smile on your face and go on. you know, and I did that. I was a good little girl. I did that. Oh, I'm fine. And I'd be crying inside. They didn't, but that's what they did also. And yes, just like you said, that's what their parents did, and their parents before them. You just you didn't let people know how you were really feeling, because I think it was supposed to be so bad to express any anger, or we didn't learn how to say to people in a straight, clear way, you know, that's not a nice thing you just did, or that's not a nice thing you just said. We don't learn to say that. How to, you know.
I was going to just say I really am resonating a lot with what you guys are saying, but I don't think I have reached the same level of enlightenment as you have, because, you know, I did fault my parents. I did. I found myself feeling a great deal of anger towards them because I hadn't been taught the things that I thought I was supposed to be taught. And that, my friends, is where the anger really comes from, is this continual blaming. It wasn't until I was able to recognize that they did the best they could based on the knowledge that they had, on the information that was available to them at the time. It wasn't until I got that in my head that I was able to actually release it and say, okay, so now I don't blame them anymore. But the fact is, I did for a long time, and I have a suspicion that a lot of people do. And that's what keeps us stuck in our anger.
I think that's one of the things. I think you're right. I think a lot of people do blame whoever. I think, of course, one of the things I say, and one of the things I teach, is that blaming of any sort is one of those negative habits we all have that keep us locked in non-forgiveness, that block forgiveness.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you're blaming parents, or blaming a sibling, or blaming a teacher, or blaming somebody else, or blaming yourself. Some people get taught to blame themselves for anything that goes wrong, that it's all their own fault. They did it. And that's just as bad. You know, any sort of blaming blocks us. So we need to let go of blame and choose another practice, choose another way. I can talk about that at any point that you want to.
Yeah, JoAnn, I'm looking at your book here and looking at your table of contents, right? The 3 destructive habits, and number 1 is blaming.
Yes,
So right, this is exactly it. If you find yourself blaming, if you find yourself pointing fingers at somebody else or something else, or as somebody described to me last week, if you have a problem with a situation, there's the problem that's out there, and there's the problem that's in here.
yes.
And the thing we can do is to do this forgiveness work is to look at what's in here, what's sticking, and what's causing that problem in here. Blaming is one of, and that's a brilliant thing just to put in front of people.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, I don't want to make people wrong for it, because the truth is, it's a part of being human. We blame. And what you need to do is learn that you blame, either pointing the finger out or pointing the finger at yourself. We blame. So catch yourself blaming, and, you know, blaming others or yourself, and stop and say, okay, I don't want to blame. I want to just forgive and let it go. Or you can choose to start, if you need to just really clear in some way and breathe. Think of some things you're grateful for. That will open you up. That will slow you down. Stop and breathe and think of some things you're grateful for, and that starts to slow you down and slow down the upset and the blame and the trigger things that get us going. So, and gratitude is something very, very powerful to do, that will slow down the blaming and get us into something else. I don't think there's any way for any of us to ever completely, totally get to where we don't ever blame anyone, or never blame ourselves. But we certainly can get to the place that we can catch ourselves doing it and stop doing it at that moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one of the things that I'm noticing as I hear you speak, there's a very fine line between self-blame and taking responsibility. I think that we have to be really careful here. I do believe that part of what my job is as a human being is to just be responsible for every aspect of my own life, to
Yes.
take responsibility. However, in order to take responsibility, sometimes that might look like, oh, I made a mistake, I messed up, or I might even get more energetic about it and say, oh man, I really fucked up there. Whatever the truth is, it's an opportunity for me to just take responsibility rather than pointing the finger outward. Look at, so how did I invite this into my life, and what can I learn from it, and how can I move forward to the next phase of my life, knowing what I now know when I didn't know this before. In other words, how can I treat this as a gift and be grateful for it?
That's beautiful. That's great. Yes. And one of the things we want to get to is to be able to see it as a gift. And if you start, one of the things you can do is find something in the situation that is good. Find something in either the person that's, you know, there's ways to acknowledge, but everybody has something good about them. If it's a person you're upset with, you know, or a situation, there's always something you can find that's
Absolutely.
good, and you start acknowledging that. Start with that and see the good in that, and acknowledge it, and then be grateful for that, and then see if there's something else you can find that's good in the person or the situation, and be grateful for that and express gratitude for it. And the more we can express gratitude, gratitude is so powerful. It's just like forgiveness. Forgiveness is so powerful and so freeing. Gratitude just opens up the heart space. Gratitude connects us to God, to Source, and opens up our heart space, and it's just so incredibly powerful. It's one reason I tie forgiveness and gratitude together, because gratitude allows us to do the things that allow us to forgive, that make forgiveness natural and something that's simple to do.
Yeah.
So JoAnn, how about you've got two other destructive habits here. That was a great discussion on blaming.
Yeah.
And wait, I actually have a quick thought on blaming before we go there. If you fundamentally believe, you say you see the good in somebody, you see the good in somebody. I know that there is good in everybody. Human nature is that there is spirit and goodness in everybody, and it just gets clouded and buried by what we're taught and what we're conditioned to believe and what we take in our whole life, and just piles up on us. Some people call those delusions. We have a head full of delusions. So when somebody acts out, or I feel like I want to blame somebody for something, I don't blame the person. I don't blame the goodness in the person. Like you say, I find that goodness, but I look at them and I say, you know what, they're still struggling. They're suffering under delusion still. They still have stuff in their head that they haven't resolved. And therefore I forgive them. I don't even hold them accountable at that point for crazy behavior. Accountable. But you see what I'm saying? It's almost like you kind of forgive in advance because you know people are nuts in their heads and they're struggling trying to get by.
Yeah.
So
and there are ways, one of the things about forgiving is that it allows you to let the person be who they are, the way they are in the moment. And you can step back and step away from it without going into what I used to do, a screaming rage. You know, you can step back and let it be, and it makes such a difference. I tell you, for me to be free of screaming rages, and I mean, sometimes I have to walk away and go somewhere and go, you know, but I can do that for a moment and then come back to the situation. I'm not perfect, you know, in the way of never doing anything that you know, I still do some of that. I just don't scream at people anymore. And forgiveness gets you to the point that you can let that person be the way they're being, step back, breathe, let it be, and at some point, hopefully, maybe, if you continue to be around them, you can hold them accountable if it needs to be done that way, if it needs to be. Sometimes you need to just let people go, and they'll learn their lessons when they're ready to learn them. You know, it can just be that way.
Well, I think it's important to. I like that you actually allow yourself to step outside and scream. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Personally, that is what I call self-responsible behavior. Because what you're doing is you're recognizing that you're feeling this very strong emotion in your body, that you want to get it out so that you can get back to center. And I think that's extremely important. But it's very important also to recognize not to react in the moment. And that's what I hear you saying. So, okay, I've got this energy coming up, I'm feeling some anger coming up, and I don't want to stay here and start blaming you, so I'm going to be stepping away, going out there, and I'm going to yell at that rock out there for a while. And then I'm going to come back in and reconnect with you, and then we'll do whatever it is we need to do.
Yes, exactly, and that works. That works.
Yeah, it does. And David, you bring up a point about that not reacting. That the word reacting is that snap judgment, that snap fireback, that rage, that anger that just bursts out. And when you begin this process, right, JoAnn can express this as you start this process of forgiving. You're creating space. You're actually creating some space in your head to be able to pause for that second. That's all it takes. Exactly what you're saying, David. Is it sometimes just takes that pause to not knee-jerk react. And then in that pause, your wisdom can actually come through, and you can start to respond. And and then if responding means you run outside and you scream at a rock and you kick the rock and then you come back in, then you do that.
Yes.
I don't recommend kicking the rock because that can be more self-destructive than it can be for anything else.
Or you could kick it into someone's window or something. You don't want to do that.
Especially the way you're dressed today, David, that would really hurt your toe.
Yeah, that's right.
So, JoAnn, there's a couple of things, being right and judging. Do you want to touch on those a little bit? Because those are both also pretty nasty habits.
Well, one thing, that we all judge. Again, it's automatic. You can't not do it. I never try to teach anyone to stop judging negatively, because we just do it. You see somebody, walking across the street with, see a woman overweight, dressed in a bikini, and she's got yellow and purple and neon green hair, and I judge. That's automatic. But then I catch myself and I say, yeah, just like me. And because we're one and the same. We're all people. And she's a person doing her thing. Wow, I should be going, oh my gosh, she's got what it takes to go out in public looking like that. Wow, that's really something. You couldn't pay me enough money to do that. I don't care how badly I might need, the money. I wouldn't do it. And so I can say, wow, I'm grateful that there are people who do all kinds of things in the world. We're just all kinds of people here. There are all kinds of things you can say to let go of judging and let it go. And then there's the, oh boy, this is a good one, the need to be right. I mean, how many of us, we all want to be right?
Yeah. You're right about that.
Yeah. And if you were making me wrong, I would be sitting here going, I don't know, because I'm right. I mean, I've written a book. I know. I mean, we all want to be right, and when someone starts making us wrong, by golly, we want to let them know how wrong they are and how right we are. But again, it just blocks the whole process of being with someone.
Yeah.
If someone wants to make you wrong, let them make you wrong and just say, oh, okay, I got it. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know what you think. I disagree, but, oh well. And, or, whatever you choose to say to someone, and just let them have their opinion.
Yeah. What I think, I want to just say something about, the whole judgment thing. First off, I think that we have a negative judgment about the concept of judgment. Not all judgment is bad. In fact, judgment can be very, very good, and it's necessary for us to live and survive and walk through this physical life. So judgments are necessary.
Yes.
What I think is wrong with our society is that people make judgments and pronouncements all the time with no recognition that they're doing so. They claim their judgments as if they were fact. And one of the things I try to teach people is fine, have your judgment, but please preface it with, my judgment is, and then say your judgment, rather than simply stating it as fact. That way you become more aware of your judgments in the moment that you're saying them, and it makes it much easier for you then to communicate with people and say, wow, I notice I have this judgment of you, and it comes from way back when I was a kid, and I see that I am now projecting my mother onto you or my father onto you, and therefore I'm not seeing you for who you are. It's a powerful, powerful process, and something that I do with people all the time now. And it's anyways, I just wanted to say that. So,
David, in my opinion, you're right on.
Yeah.
Well, and you're right, Tom.
You're right. You're absolutely right, David.
In your opinion, I'm right.
No, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Now you're getting a room with these mirrors on both walls, and the mirror keeps going and going and going and going and going.
Yeah.
We're getting into one of those.
That's right.
JoAnn, what do you teach people? How do you teach people how to forgive? Do you have some steps or a process or something that you do to kind of help people get there?
May I ask something right quick? Because are we ending this in a couple of minutes?
Yeah,
Is this ending?
Yeah, in about 5 minutes.
About 4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
Okay. Is there? I can talk about some of it. Is there any possibility of coming back and really going into it another time? The steps that that I teach, or is this
absolutely. It? If we can give a bit of an overview in the next 5 minutes and then have you back in the future, absolutely.
That would be great. Because I just would like to go into each of them a little more, like we've done with these negative judgments, negative habits. So one of the things I teach that I really think is so important and powerful is gratitude. Gratitude, like I said, art space. Gratitude just doing that feeling thing you were about, Tommy, with people. Gets us feeling our feelings and in touch with other people. Gratitude puts you in touch with your feelings, and it actually it's so great. I read something one time. Someone said we ought to make gratitude the background music for our lives. That's how powerful it is. If we could just have gratitude going all the time. Now, I won't go into it any more than that. Let me mention another one. Another thing I teach is reverence for all. I teach getting in touch with nature, with connecting with the earth and with God, connecting with the universe, and really getting out in nature and feeling it and being in touch with it, and that then leads us to the third one, leads us naturally to connecting with our oneness with all. Oneness with each other, oneness with the universe, oneness with God. And once we're feeling really, we practice daily. I say stop for a few minutes each day and do at least one of these. Gratitude, reverence for all, oneness thoughts, oneness thinking, get in touch with that. And that will lead us, it will make forgiveness much easier. It will help us to forgive. And finally, the fourth practice is telling new stories. Give up the poor me, sad old victim stories we so often like to tell. Give it all up and tell new stories of gratitude, of joy, of freedom, of love, of happiness. Tell stories that make people feel good and happy to hear you telling them. And that you'll be amazed what that'll do for you.
That sounds pretty awesome. And it sounds very, I remember when we were at the Messenger Summit, you were handing out these little pads,
Yes.
little Post-its with, what are you grateful for? And I have found that very useful. I just like to have that, just write something down and then stick it up on the wall somewhere. That's an awesome gift.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that's a perfect use of it also. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, JoAnn, do you have a website or something you want to let the people know about, or an email address?
I would want for people to go to theforgivenesshabit.org, and you can sign up to get some things from me for free. And there's a lot of, I have pages that you can go to and do these practices. I support you in doing gratitude and reverence and oneness and telling new stories. Go there and enjoy it. It's made for you to practice these and to forgive.
TheForgivenessHabit.org. Okay. JoAnn, thank you so much. You know, David and I love you, and every time here's an air hug, because we can't give you one in person this time. But thanks so much for joining us today. It's been lovely talking with you. We will have you back.
Namaste. Thank you very much. It's been great being here.
And David, you want to talk a little bit about next week's show?
Sure. So next week we're going to be talking about don't take it personally. It's going to be a whole episode devoted to that one agreement that we tend to make with each other, you know, in terms of the 4 agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on next week. So thanks everybody for showing up, and I'm sorry my camera wasn't working, but next time we'll try and get that all up and running again. Take care and have a good week.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.